You are listening to Radio Cosmos.
All night long.
Bravo!
My compliments, little lady.
Commercial! Break for 30 seconds.
You are now listening to BaaD Radio.
Hello and welcome to BaaD Radio. BaaD stands for Business at a Distance. This is a show about local businesses and business networking. We are here in the News Radio WFLA Orlando studios from 11 a.m. to noon every Sunday, and I am your host, Angela Smarito. And before we jump into everything, I want to give a big shout out to Body Street of Winter Park. Experience the future of fitness at Body Street in Winter Park. Lose weight, build muscle, tone your body in only 20 minutes a week. Visit bodystreet.us where fitness meets efficiency. And today we have our longtime friend, John Kennedy with Forge IT Consulting in studio with us. So welcome, John.
Good to be here.
I know I always love it when you come in because I actually get a lot of feedback from your shows. Like I'll get messages and things like that that people will call in and or will actually send me emails and be like looking for those shows that you had. And I don't know if you saw, but one time there was a copywriter that did a whole write-up of one of your shows. Yeah, it was on Facebook.
Okay.
His name is Alvin, and he did like I said, it was probably, oh my gosh, it was probably about a 3 or 4 minute read, and it just kind of went over all the whole show. So I'll forward you the link
Please
to
do.
that.
I'd love to read it.
Yeah, it was good though. So what's been up?
It's been a busy month. I've had a couple of clients that decided to go their own way on security, and it kind of bit them recently. So one got hit with...
it bit him right in the butt.
It bit them hard. So one is a company that got hit with ransomware, and
tell us what ransomware is exactly.
So ransomware is when a cyber criminal infects your computers in your network with software that will go and encrypt the data that you have on your various different computers, and then lock it under that encryption key and tell you, okay, so we've encrypted all your data so you can't use it. We've made a copy of all your data so that we can leak it. And if you don't pay us whatever amount of money we've decided, you're worth, then we're going to leak your data and we're going to destroy your data. And that happened to them.
So what qualifications usually do you see in a company that gets hit with ransomware? Like, are they a company that are like their gross profits are above a certain amount?
It can happen to any company.
Really?
Small businesses are actually more likely to get hit than bigger ones.
See, I would have thought it was the other way around.
Yeah, it's not about how much money they can make total. It's about how easy it is to make the money. So the easier the target, the more likely you are to get hit.
Right.
It's one of those situations where you're running from a bear. It's not about being faster than the bear. It's about being faster than the guy behind you.
Okay, got it.
So as long as you're more secure than most other small businesses, you're probably not going to get hit.
Right.
But if you aren't, then you've become an easy target and they're more likely to hit you. So this guy didn't have the best antivirus. He had a backup system that wasn't sufficient for handling things when a ransomware actor gets into your network.
How does that? Did you able to identify how?
We couldn't identify specifically how it happened. We spent too much time just getting them up as quickly as possible that we couldn't identify exactly how it happened. But I suspect most likely it was a phishing email. Somebody clicked on something that they shouldn't have. Somebody that had
Here, do me a favor, pull that a little bit closer.
Sure.
To you.
Somebody had enough rights to get in and do admin things on servers, and if you get enough permissions through one way, you can create yourself more permissions and get into more stuff. So this company has around 20, 30 workstations.
That's what I was going to ask you. How many employees?
Yeah, and nearly 20 servers. It's about a 35 user network. They host all of their stuff locally, and the attackers got into everything. So every computer was hit.
Oh, wow.
Every server was hit. Everything was gone. And unfortunately, they thought
But not gone, held for ransom.
Right, held for ransom.
Okay.
So it's not gone technically, but if you're not able to pay it or you don't want to pay it, well, yeah, it's essentially gone.
Is there anything legal that can be
sure,
done?
you can report it to the FBI or your local police department, but at the end of the day, these are typically foreign actors. They're in some other country, typically somewhere related to Russia, like
oh, really? I
Belarus.
thought it was all India.
Well, it can be India, but also Belarus, Tajikistan, etc. These countries that don't have laws against these types of companies, because that's what they are. They're companies. They're businesses. It's not some random guy in a basement.
See, this is what kills me is that it's a company that's built on fraud.
Right.
That blows me away.
Right. And in some countries, that's allowed, essentially.
Right. So
in some of these countries, as long as they're not attacking companies inside of Russia, well, then nobody cares.
Right. So, this guy gets up, gets ready for work, kisses his wife goodbye, goes to work, and it gets on his computer. And his job is to hack into other people's computers and steal from them.
Right.
That blows me away.
It's not all that different than a spy agency, honestly, at the end of the day. But yes, they're making money off this because at the end of the day, like I said, it's ransomware. They come up with a ransom amount that they think you can pay that is at the top end of what you can pay. And they say, okay, pay it or you lose everything.
Do they give people like amount? So how is the communication with the people that are the ransomers?
So they leave a note on your computer that says, all the information of how to get in touch with them. So they're going to use some kind of website on the dark web that does a chat website, kind of similar to chat support on a real company.
Okay, right.
It's just that it's on the dark web because they don't want to
people to be able to track it or whatever.
So you have to download special software so you can get to it. You log into that. You say, "Hey, I'm here. I read the message. How much do you want?" And they tell you.
So have you been on chatting?
I chatted with them. I had to find out how much they wanted because the guy didn't have backups. He knew he was screwed. He thought he could just pay the ransom because he had done so before because he had been hit before.
Oh my God.
His general impression was if they want to get in, they're gonna get in. And so why should I spend all this extra money when I could just pay the ransom? Because the previous time it was something he could afford. This time it was something he could not afford.
Oh, wow.
And the difference was over 10 times as much as they had wanted the previous time.
I wonder if it was the same company that hit him again.
Probably not. Possible, but probably not. It's just, luck of the draw almost. Whether they got hit either through a phishing attack or if, somebody,
Do you think
another company.
Is there ever anybody on the inside that...
Sometimes, but those are usually for bigger companies,
right? Where somebody
smaller companies, they're not gonna get into a particular person that's there,
right?
But yeah, phishing attacks are typically targeted against somebody in particular inside the company, and whoever that is, it's either somebody they think that has permissions to be able to do something on the computer network or permissions to be able to send money. So like phishing attacks can also just be trying to get you to send a wire to something that, is fake.
Right.
That's a quicker way to do it most of the time with phishing.
Well, I can
Doing
see
ransomware takes more time.
Right. It does?
Yeah, it takes more time because you're trying to get into the network and get in all the computers infected at once and then encrypt everything at once overnight so that you've hit everything all at once.
So
that takes time.
They came in one morning and it was everything.
Everything was clocked out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Were you working with them before this?
Yeah.
Okay.
They had just chosen to go their own way on doing security and backups and were convinced that they knew what to expect for the next time. And unfortunately, either they didn't fully understand how their backups worked, or they didn't fully understand, how expensive ransomware attacks are nowadays. They didn't have, cyber insurance, which can pay for those kinds of attacks sometimes. Okay. But, they didn't have the things in place to help prevent it or mitigate it after it happens. So obviously after the fact, now that we've gotten them back up and running, we were able to recover from 2-year-old backups.
Wow. Actually,
journey began.
I didn't realize it, but we're going to go to break. I want to pick this up when we get
Sure.
back. So everybody stay tuned. We have more BaaD Radio coming up. Welcome back. And this portion of the show is brought to you by Premier Couples Superstore. So you need to head over there now because there's no better time to visit Premier Couples Superstore. They have got a huge selection of lingerie, shoes, toys, games, love oils, and a ton of great gifts. With Premier Couples Superstore, you don't pay those high prices because you're going to go directly to the source. 5009 South OBT or shop online at premiercouples.net because a couple that plays together stays together.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. All right. We're here with John Kennedy with Forge IT Consulting, and he's been telling us a story that just blows me away about a company that got hit with ransomware. And it wasn't just one or two computers. It was like the whole entire company.
Yep.
And so I asked him during the break, I was like, did they have to pay? And you answered, but I was like, no, just let's talk about it.
Sure.
All right. So
they didn't pay. The amount that the cyber attackers wanted was way too high. So
are we talking like thousands or millions?
we're talking over $200,000 in Bitcoin.
Okay. And Bitcoin is something that can't be tracked. Is that correct?
I mean, it can't be tracked easily. It can be. It's not like 100%. Oh, no one can ever know how much, who owns what. That's not entirely true, but it is really hard to do. And they'd be able to get the money in and out of Bitcoin fast enough that it wouldn't matter.
Okay. So they asked for a huge
They
chunk.
asked for a huge chunk of money that they think that the company can afford. He said, no, I can't pay that. We didn't talk to the ransomware people anymore. And instead, we managed to find an old backup that was disconnected from the network entirely. And we just wiped everything and started over from scratch.
2019.
Other than, the backups for those servers.
Mm-hmm.
So all the computers were wiped and reloaded. All of the servers were restored from 2 years ago.
Okay.
So from 2023. So they lost 2 years worth of data, and updates and whatever to their, they're hosting their own apps, their own CRM, all of that kind of stuff. So any updates to those got wiped out and had to be redone as well. It took us about 2 weeks for him to become fully functional again.
Right.
And even then, he also lost, his accounting software because that was on his desktop, and that's just gone. There was no backup for that.
Oh, wow.
He's just having to figure it out, which is, I'm sure, a nightmare. But as far as I was concerned, I got him back up and fully functional in 2 weeks with all of his servers and infrastructure and how it should be working again.
Right.
And so now he's back up and running. And I was like, okay, so to prevent this in the future, we need to make sure that you have backups that are fully offline. If we're not going to, increase your security measures, we need to do a few things. So let's not host your own email inside your office anymore. We moved him to Office 365, so that's all in the cloud. If he gets hit again, at least his email will work.
Okay.
Because that was down too.
So they can't get into that.
Right. They're not going to get into that. There's no real reason to go in and infect things on Microsoft's side. That's too much.
Is it? Okay.
And so we're getting the servers backed up to a place where every so often they will be fully offline, and those backups will not be connected to the network, so that, in the event of a ransomware attack, just like the ones that he had that were old, it'll be the same idea. Those are what are called air-gapped. They're not connected to the internet. They're not connected to the network. There's no way during an attack that an attacker could get to them. And then on top of that, for the things that have data that go into them on a regular basis, their databases, we're uploading those backups to the cloud in a location and in a way that an attacker can't get in there and delete those backups. So those backups are immutable. That means that they cannot be deleted for at least 14 days. So
that's so awesome.
It's a much better situation. It's still basically counting on being hit again, but being more resilient when that happens.
Right.
That's the plan that he decided he preferred.
Right.
I prefer to be more secure in the first place so that, it's less likely that it's going to happen at all.
Right.
But, at least this way we have the correct type of backups in place to get him back up and running, where instead of taking 2 weeks, it should take, 2-3 days.
Right. Okay. And so what happened with the people, the ransom? You just basically
You
cut
just
them
ignore
off?
them.
Okay. And you're like,
You just move on.
right. But what about leaking their information and stuff?
He didn't care. He's not that type of client. He's
Oh,
not,
okay.
you know, he's not, he doesn't have any PHI. He doesn't have credit card information. He doesn't have anything that's dangerous to, you know, anything that he would have to report.
Right.
So it didn't really matter to him that, you know, oh, you've got some client data and some telephone numbers. We don't care.
Okay. All right. Well, then, I mean, that's good because then some businesses have to worry about that. Because
Absolutely. If you're a doctor, you
lawyer,
get put on the HIPAA wall of shame.
that would be bad.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, that's good that he was in that position where, I mean, threatening to leak was not going to make him
threatening
upset.
to leak isn't a big deal for him. A lot of companies it would be, but there's equally number of companies that are like him that, you know, they're not going to care because they don't keep that data in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I'd always recommend anybody that works with, you know, taking credit card information, make sure to do it in a way that you don't store that data so that in the event that something like this happened, and it doesn't have to be ransomware, it could be, you know, an employee that takes home data that shouldn't have or whatever, you're not liable for that data being leaked.
Right. So if you use a system like QuickBooks, like I use QuickBooks, now I can collect money through credit card. I don't store that information.
Right. You never see the credit card info.
No.
Exactly.
No.
It's all being handled by QuickBooks. So
Okay.
you don't care.
So QuickBooks is the one that needs to worry, not me.
Correct.
Gotcha. I like the way that sounds because I don't want to worry about it.
Yeah.
I always say that, you know what? I don't have enough of anything yet to be interesting. So
Right.
I'm
Back
like,
a long time ago, you know, a decade or more ago, a lot of companies would store the credit card data in their own databases, and then they would need to be PCI compliant. That's the regulatory thing that says you have to do X, Y, and Z to make sure you're protecting credit card information or other financial information. They'd store that data locally. And so therefore they would have to do all of those extra regulatory things. And in the event that they got hit with some kind of ransomware, like a client that I had back before I started my own business, that was more of a problem. But luckily back then that wasn't a leaking data type of a ransomware attack yet. They hadn't graduated to that level of attack yet. So they didn't have to worry about it too much.
so what would happen in that situation though if this client was, and you know what I mean, if leaking that information, I mean, how do you handle that? Do you have to have more conversations with the attackers?
Then, well, not necessarily. I mean, it depends on how you're handling it. If there's, at the end of the day, these people are criminals. There is no guarantee that if you pay their ransom, that they're not going to,
too, right?
you know, do something to you again or later or whatever. So, like, say it's in their vested interest if they want to get paid that they do need to restore your data. So the ransomware, if on your computer, if you pay them, it is in their best interest to give you your data back.
And have you seen that happen?
Absolutely. People
Okay.
have paid ransom and gotten their data back. Absolutely. That does happen. FBI doesn't want you to do it, but if you have cyber insurance and you're doing all the right things in terms of making sure that you meet the minimums for cyber insurance will pay it for you just because that's a faster way to get you up and running. It's cheaper sometimes.
They'll pay the ransom
to do that.
Wow. Okay.
Can
you negotiate with them?
Of course you can. We attempted to. It just didn't work this particular time. But if you do pay the ransom, they're going to restore your data. But they may or may not leak your data, and they may or may not, you know, sell their access to your network to some other, you know, cyber criminal, so that those other people do it, because those are harder to pin back to them. Whereas if they don't give you your data back, well, then no one's going to pay them the ransom in the first place because they're not getting what they're paid for.
Right.
So you have to they will always give you your data back if you pay them because it's in their best interest. But anything else, you can't trust.
It can't be guaranteed that they don't leak that or resell it or whatever.
Exactly. You just cannot trust that they're going to do anything else that they say they will.
Right, because like you said, they're criminals. They're bad people.
Right.
So I mean, they're obviously their goal is just to make as much money as they can.
Exactly.
Off of like hacking you. So
right.
bad people. Well, we're going to continue to talk about those bad people, but we're going to go to break right now. So everybody, stay tuned for more BaaD Radio coming up. Welcome back, and this portion of the show is brought to you by Ground Up Property Services. Do you know what your sprinkler system did last night? Probably not. So now is a good time to get your irrigation system serviced by Ground Up Property Services. And be sure to ask Rick with Ground Up Property Services about a water sensor, too, so your lawn doesn't get too much water. Call 407-468-4295 or visit groundupinc.net. And we just had we had him out this past week because we saw a certain part of our lawn was not getting watered. And he came out. He fixed it. He did the whole irrigation system checkup, and we are back up and running. And I mean, Rick Hall's a great guy. Have you ever met Rick?
I haven't met Rick yet.
You know what? Because you guys, I always thought I get confused on which circles of people are in what, as far as networking. So we're here with John Kennedy with Forge IT Consulting, and we've been talking about cybersecurity. And the story that he just told us was amazing and scary. To me, it's horrifying because now I am a business owner. And now I know how much information is on my computer, or and so it is scary. But you mentioned our phones, and I'm like, uh-oh, that's even more scary because, yes, I use my phone in my business every single day. And I'm not just saying once or twice. I'm talking about like multiple times throughout the day.
Right.
And so you had another client that got hacked through his phone?
Right. And this one was tricky because I didn't have enough information about what was going on at the beginning to fully attack the situation. So at the beginning, the issue was
he a current client?
Yes, but again, this was one that had only ever used me for, contract work. So bringing me in, hey, I've got a problem. I need this fixed. Go fix it. That's it. I don't manage their network. I don't secure them in any way. That was the extent of our relationship. So they contacted me saying, hey, somebody's using our emails and sending out wire transfer emails to our clients. Help. And I go in and I see that, okay, so there's rules in place on these accounts that are making sure that any replies from the people they're sending these emails to get automatically archived and sent someplace else.
Okay.
Clearly, there's somebody in this email account and they're doing bad things.
Okay.
Most likely, this means that, some sort of phishing attack happened and they had typed in their email address and password someplace because they weren't using multi-factor authentication for their email. They were using GoDaddy for their email hosting. And GoDaddy's security is much less than what you would get from Microsoft Direct.
How's SiteGround?
SiteGround doesn't do Microsoft 365 email hosting. They do regular email hosting. And I wouldn't imagine, as in like an IMAP account or a POP3, and the security on that would be even less.
All right. We need to talk. Okay.
So I figured, okay, let's change their passwords. Let's delete all the rules. Make sure no one's.
So you're stopping whatever
we're stopping what they're doing. We'll move on. A week later, it happened again. And I'm like, okay, there's something else going on here. And I find out that the owner's phone had been infected a few months ago. She had gotten a phone call from somebody that claimed to be a bank.
A bank or her bank?
Her bank.
Okay.
And had gotten access to her phone. Like she wasn't, doing very well. She had recently gotten surgery. She wasn't, firing on cylinders. She wasn't
in her great headspace.
Exactly. Okay. But she allowed them into her phone, and the phone got fully infected, and they, started moving money around, and they had to clean all that up back in October.
How did you track that down to her
But now that
phone?
she said that, I was like, oh, wait a second. So then I go in and I check her account. Her account has access to every single other account in their Microsoft 365 tenant. Mm-hmm. So she has send as permissions, and she has read and full access permissions everybody's account. That's unusual. She's never asked for that. Why would she have that? And then we also found out that, okay, let's lock them out of all of the accounts. Let's put it on multi-factor authentication for everybody. This should make it so that they can't get in. We take away her admin rights. We take away a bunch of other things. We make sure everyone's got multi-factor authentication turned on. Next day, I also add some monitoring software to their Microsoft 365 tenant, And that night, I got hits saying that there were successful logins from Chicago and one from Lagos, Nigeria.
Wow.
And I'm like, wait a second, something else is going on here. How are they still able to get in if we have multi-factor authentication turned on? It's only her account that's still getting hit. All these other accounts are fine. Okay, so we've narrowed it down to her account.
Okay.
So something's going on with her phone to this day. So that means either they still have access to the phone through some sort of infection. So maybe whoever infected her phone back a few months ago sold that access to her phone to another company, and that other company is now using it to do
But I mean,
this
how
attack.
could they get past that two-way authentication?
If they have access to the phone, then they have access to the multi-factor authentication that's going through her phone.
Oh, wow.
Or they could have gone a different step, which is there's a man-in-the-middle type of attack that unfortunately the way phones work in the world is set up in a way that if you bribe a phone company in a third world country that will give you access to a particular thing, it's complicated. You can watch YouTube videos about this, though. They can get it to the point where they can receive every single text message that you receive.
Oh, my God.
So if you set up multi-factor authentication through text messaging especially, well, all of those texts get forwarded to the attacker, so it doesn't matter that you have multi-factor authentication on it if they already have access to your phone number.
Gotcha.
So that's all they need. All they need is your phone number and your name. If they've got those two things, they can do this type of an attack. It costs them money to do this type of attack. So I think it's more likely that it was just the hack of the phone itself. And so I told her, hey, go replace your phone. It's still infected. Whatever it is that you did back a few months ago wasn't enough. I don't trust this phone anymore. You need to get a different phone. And this was an iPhone. So it's not like, oh, it's an iPhone, it's protected, it's secure. That's just not the case. There's malware for phones of all kinds.
I always heard the iPhones were like Fort Knox,
They're not.
Yeah.
I mean, if you follow the news, there's big name ones that are done by like an Israeli security firm that sells this primarily to governments. But if there's a company that does that, well, then there's another company out there that sells it to criminals, and those criminals have access to the same kinds of tools.
Wow.
There is malware for everything. There's probably malware for your car's computer. The thing is that it's really hard to get into that computer. It's really hard to get into a phone unless you happen to let somebody into it.
Right.
So like an iPhone is fairly secure if you're not going to weird websites.
It sounds like like you said, she wasn't in the best headspace.
Exactly.
And so
she
gave
helped them
past,
in
right.
and didn't understand that this was a criminal that was doing it. She thought it was her bank.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I feel for her because I've been hacked through having somebody call my phone from a Chase number saying they are Chase.
Exactly.
And my husband and I, we verified the phone number because I didn't know that was the case, and so
you can spoof phone numbers too.
Yeah,
that's easy.
I didn't know that.
Exactly.
And
People don't know this stuff.
And then afterwards, I felt really, like I said, because I was speaking on the phone with a criminal, with the person that was trying to take our money.
Right.
Now, Chase did the right thing, and they actually, they withdrew money from our account, but they replaced it all. And they did their investigation and everything like that. So I'm very happy of the way that it turned out, but it just makes you feel so vulnerable, and it's really uncomfortable.
I mean, the bottom line is you should never go to websites that on your phone that allow access to your phone. You should never allow people into your phone.
I just don't know in what situation they would ask to be into your phone other than bank.
Yeah, I mean that's the usual way of doing it. Is that people trust their bank. If they think it's their bank, they're willing to do what people ask. But a bank will never actually ask you to do that. There's just no way.
I didn't know that either. They had told us, and they might have said the same thing, like, "Hey, are you traveling right now?" Because we see people trying to get into your account, so they scare you into thinking that somebody's trying to steal from you.
Right.
And you verify the number, and then you're like, okay, that they are who they say they are.
Right.
But no.
Right.
Yeah.
If somebody's calling you, don't trust that it's a bank.
Yeah, banks don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going to go to break. When we get back, we are going to talk more with John Kennedy, so stay tuned. Welcome back, and I want to give a huge thank you to our sponsor, Forge IT Consulting, providing a fully outsourced IT department with a personal touch for small business. ForgeITConsulting.com. Get me automated. Ashley and her team are ready to make your life easier through automation. We have a new sponsor, Beach Medical, which I was very excited that they were just on, like it was either last week or the week before, as well as Osteopathic Health of Orlando. So thank you to all of our sponsors for making BaaD Radio a reality. And we are here with John Kennedy with Forge IT Consulting. And I mean, I feel whenever we have these conversations, I always feel very, very vulnerable. So let's talk about what we can do as business owner and just, personal, people to protect ourselves.
Right. So like we were talking about.
Let's talk about business first. So
with the phone, don't trust that anybody ever needs full access to your phone or remote access to your phone. Just hardly anyone ever needs that. About the only person that you would ever possibly need to talk to with that would be an IT person that works for you. And you'd be able to verify that some other way.
Would a bank ever contact you and say something looks weird?
A bank would never contact you to try to get into your phone. They would never ask to be into your phone. Never.
Or not just your phone, or your account, or getting
into your computer for that matter.
Right.
They would never want to remotely access any of your stuff. They might contact you and say, "Hey, there's a problem," through a text message or a phone call or something like that. But mostly, it's going to be a text message, and they're going to tell you to call them back. But they're not going to give you the number. They're going to expect you to know the number, because if they give you the number, that might not be the right number.
I did get another hit last year, and it looked just like a chase text, and it said that somebody tried to Zelle $1,000 out, and of course the first thing I do is panic. I called the bank and shut Zelle down, and I asked them if they had done that, and they said no.
Right.
So I just played with them for a little bit. I was like, oh no, what should I do? And it's like, well, let's call. And so they would try to call. I wouldn't answer. Then I'd be like, oh, sorry, I stepped away. And I actually, like I said, kept them.
Yeah.
I was having some fun with
Yeah, you were learning about how they do these kinds of things.
And they continued to try to get me on the phone for about an hour and a half.
They had you on the hook. They thought they had somebody that they were going to get money out of.
So Tom and I got a kick out of that. We had a fun time. But anyway,
So bottom line, don't let people into your phone. For your computers and your computer systems and servers and anything else that you have for your business infrastructure, you want some kind of backup that is going to be someplace that an attacker can't get to it directly. If they get access to your computer, they can't have access to your backups. So, for instance, if you use OneDrive and use their quote unquote backup solution through OneDrive for your desktop documents and pictures, that's not really a backup. That's a sync. So if they ransomware your computer, it would sync the encrypted file to OneDrive, and all your files, both locally and in OneDrive, would all be encrypted. So that's not a backup.
No.
However, if you do that and then make sure that you're backing up everything in Microsoft 365, including your OneDrive, to a third location, well, then that sync is being backed up someplace else, and you can recover from that third location backup.
And that is most likely going to be like the cloud.
That'll be cloud to cloud to a service that does that specifically. And it's completely disconnected. There's no way to get to it from your account or your computer.
Right. Well, then how do you get to it?
Well, it's APIs direct between Microsoft 365 and the backup software.
Okay.
It's something that gets done through the admin process, and the Microsoft side can't tell the backup side to do anything. So even if they got access to the admin side of your Microsoft tenant, they can't get to the backup because that's managed separately.
Okay.
The backup gets read access to the Microsoft side and write access to the Microsoft side, but the Microsoft side can't do anything to the backup side.
But you can go get it.
But I
from
can.
the cloud.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I can get it back. Another thing to do is to have some form of next generation antivirus. So the built-in antivirus that's on a Windows computer, Windows Defender, is not half bad, but it's not fully featured. It doesn't have some of the extended detection and response, EDR, that next-gen antivirus tends to have. You can also go a step further and get managed detection and response, where there's a security operations center, a SOC, that's managing those antivirus endpoints. So it's watching anything that the antivirus sees and directly able to intervene if they see anything that's suspicious. That's a step further. Either one of those is really good to have, but like the older school antiviruses, the Nortons, the ESET, the McAfee, those are kind of garbage nowadays.
Are they?
You're better off for a lot of those just having Windows Defender, because it outperforms them in terms of making sure you're not having malware on your computer.
So let's talk about you've mentioned phishing a few times. Let's tell the audience what that is again.
So phishing is when an email is sent to you asking you to do something on behalf of the attacker. It can be a variety of different things. It can be, hey, click on this link so that you type in your email address and password to get your email address and password. It can be download this attachment so that it runs a piece of software on your computer to infect your computer.
And they usually start it with like some sort of panic thing.
Right, exactly. They love to use anything that makes you feel a sense of urgency. Anything in an email that's asking you for something urgently, it's going to make your brain automatically try to do that thing faster.
Yeah.
without thinking about it as much.
Have you gotten that one that talks about tolls and that your license is going to be suspended?
Oh yeah, I've gotten text messages about that.
Yeah.
When you get text messages about that, it's the same idea. It has a different name just because people like to give them different names.
Right.
It's called smishing. So
Smishing.
SMS smishing instead of phishing. But yeah, and another thing that phishing emails try to do is try to get you to send money someplace. So if they can pretend to be somebody with the authority to send a wire transfer, and they send an email to someone that has the ability to send a wire transfer, they give it enough urgency and enough, background that it seems legitimate, and that person just sends the money without checking with somebody higher up some other way other than via email, well, money's gone. That's a wire transfer. It's gone.
Right. And then like they can also like make fake emails that look like they're coming from like the president or the CEO or whoever would be the one to say, hey, I need you to send this money to this link or whatever.
Yeah. At the end of the day, email is something that was built in a time when security wasn't really a big deal. And adding security to email over the years has been a lot of hard work, and not everything has all of the security that's available. So spoofing an email address, sending an email from whatever address you want, is super easy. I can do it. You can do it. I could show you how to do it. It's super easy.
But when it
the
pops
question
up,
is
it looks
whether or not it looks legitimate when it is received. So it's all on the receiving end to make sure that you're not getting something that you shouldn't. The sending end can't do all that much. They can say, hey, emails from my domain need to have these characteristics, but also on the receiving end, your receiving end needs to say, okay, I'm going to actually check those things and make sure that those things are correct.
Right.
So both sides have to do stuff, but the receiving end is where most of the onus has been put as far as email is concerned. So having some kind of email filtering that checks for phishing, checks to see whether or not it looks legitimate, checks for, infected attachments, those are really useful to help limit the amount of phishing that gets through.
Right. Well, we're down to our last minute, so I would really like for you to tell the audience right now, like how to get in touch with you and all the services that you provide.
Sure. So all of the security services that I've talked about today, I definitely can provide. You can reach me at 407-318-2671, John at forgeitconsulting.com. Or you can go to the website, forgeitconsulting.com. You can book right there on the website for a phone call or an on-site connection. And I do security, email, managed services, projects. Basically, you name it, I do it.
I highly recommend, John. So you guys, thank you for tuning in this week. We appreciate it. And y'all have a great week. And remember to support local.